Hello everyone and welcome to the next lesson in our introduction to the Go programming language. So in this lesson I want us to discuss the idea of methods, okay? And so to prepare for that I want you to think back to the last lesson where we looked at structures, okay? And I said that structs vaguely resemble classes. Uh, but some of you might have asked, well, where are all the methods? Where are all those functions that are found inside the class? Okay, so today we want to address that issue. How can we create functions that are attached to a structure? Okay, so let's get to that. So I created a directory named methods. So let me go in there. It's currently empty, so I'm gonna create an empty main.go. Okay, and then I'm gonna create a module. So go mod init. Okay, let's call it methods. Right, and then let's run go mod tidy. Okay, and now let's open Visual Studio Code. All right, so let's quickly create a package main. Let's import FMT. All right, and so now what I want to do, I want to represent a circle. Okay, so I want to use a struct to represent a circle. Okay, and so I can simply say type, what's the name? Circle, capital C, and it's a struct. Okay, and what are the pieces that this struct contain? What are the elements? Well, this struct will have two things. This circle will have two things, all right? And this circle will have a length. Okay, let's call that float 64. And this circle will have a width. Oh, why am I talking circle length and width? Let's change this actually. It should be a rectangle. Okay, we get to a circle later. Okay, so represent a rectangle. Yeah. So we have a length and we have a width, right? Which you know that those are characteristics of a rectangle. Okay, so this is a rectangle. Okay, the characteristics, the attributes of a rectangle is it has a length, it has a width. It doesn't have anything else, right? A rectangle is known by those two things. So you might ask, well, is it possible for me to find the area of a rectangle? Yes. Is it possible for me to find the perimeter of a rectangle? Yes. Okay, well, let's do that. So I want to create a function. Okay. Let's call it area. And this function should return the area, which is a float, right? Okay. But if I write this, let's say return. Okay. How do I tie this function? How do I tell Go that this function should be called on a rectangle? Right? How do I tell Go that rectangle has an area function? Okay, and so to do that, we use what is called a receiver. Okay, And all we do is to say that this function can be called on a rectangle. Okay, that's easy. And we simply give the rectangle a name. Usually we start with the first letter, R. R. Okay, so all I'm saying here is this function is callable on a rectangle. Okay, and we're going to call the rectangle R. So if I want to find the area of a rectangle, R, then I'm going to return R times length, R dot length times R dot width. Okay. Now you might be asking, what's the significance of the R? Why must I use it? Well, to explain that, let me simply create a main function. Okay. And let's create a rectangle. So rec1 is a rectangle, and remember from last class, so we specify the attributes. We say length, let's say 4.5. Let's say width, all right, 2. Okay, so those are the attributes of this rectangle. So remember, rec1 is a specific, it's an instance of the rectangle struct. Okay, so I could also create another struct, another rectangle, and I could call it rec2. Okay, I could say rec2, and I could also give it the length 4.5 and the width 2. And so remember, these are two separate things. They're both rectangles, but they're two separate rectangles. All right. So if I wanted, I could maybe call this 2.5. Good. So back to the question at hand. What is this R about? What is this R about? Well, if I want to get the area of the rectangle, let's print it. So fmt.print line. If I want to get the area of rectangle 1, well then I'm going to say rec1 dot area. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that I'm trying to find the area of this specific rectangle. And so Go will say, okay, this is your rectangle. You want to find the area? Okay, so I will give rec1 and make that be the R. Okay, so when this function is referring to R, that length, it's referring to the instance that you passed in. Okay, that's why we have the R. Okay, so this function accepts a rectangle. Rec1 is a rectangle, and of course we have to give it a parameter name, so we call it R. Okay, we call it R. Just like when you write a function and it has parameters, int x, right? X is the parameter of type int. R is the parameter of type rectangle. And so when you want to refer to the value inside, you say r.length, r.width. All right, likewise, if you want to find the parameter of, let's say, rec2, well, you could simply say rec2 dot parameter. Oh, so we didn't do parameter, but anyway, we didn't do parameter, so let's do parameter right now. Okay, so func, it can be called by a rectangle. It's going to be called parameter, and it simply returns a float 64. Okay, so Where do I get my values for my parameter? Well, I get it from R. So I'm going to say return, okay, 2 times r.length plus r.width. All right, that's how you find parameter. 2 length, 2 times length plus 2 times width, or 2 times length plus width. All right, so this now allows me to find the parameter. So let's verify this. Okay, so I can say go run main.go. Oh, okay, so it's saying rect2 declared but not used. Is that right? I used rect2. Okay, let's look at that. Shouldn't be the case because I am using rect2. Okay, I am using rect2. So it shouldn't tell me that. Let's try again. Oops. Go run main.go. Okay. Good. So I needed to save. All right, so I get 9 and 14. Okay, 9 and 14, which is correct, right? 4.5 times 2 is 9, and 4.5 plus 4.5 is 9, and 9 plus 5 is 14. All right, so let's recap. If we create, using a struct, a new type, a rectangle, then if we want to specify that we want to be able to call some functions on that type rectangle, then we have to use receiver functions in a sense, which means we specify the name of the function, and before that, in between the func keyword and the name of the function, we specify what is the type this function can be called by and the parameter that we use to represent what will be passed in. Okay, so clearly rec1 is a rectangle, and so when we call area, the Go compiler will pass in rec1. So this R will represent rec1. And so we can simply say r.length times r.width. And Go knows that it really means rec1.length, rec1.width. And the same goes for parameter. When I call rec2.parameter, then Go will simply match up and say that, okay, this R actually means rec2. So in reality, I'm actually saying rec2.length plus rec2.width. All right, and so this is how we create functions that can be called on rectangles. Okay, and so we give it the name methods. So these are actually called methods. Okay, so these are called methods. Okay, so last lesson we looked only at structs, creating types, right? And so this lesson we extend and say how we can actually create functions that can utilize those types. All right, so I hope that made sense. And of course, there's not really much in terms of your imagination is concerned. You already know what functions are. You already know how to make them. You already know how to return values from them. It's now simply recognizing that you can call a function on a specific type. Okay? All right, great. I'll see you in the next lesson.